We are in a climate crisis. We are all dealing with having had very unsustainable practices all these centuries and years. And we've come to a point where we really need to sit and deliberate and see what can we do given the situation that we have, and what does our research tell us, what does our experience tell us, what do we know about where we need to head to, in the coming years. So we are here in that context. We know that one of the causes of the climate crisis is the massive carbon emissions that have been emitted over the past century, and we talk of reducing carbon emissions. Some people call it decarbonizing various sectors, and so that's what we're here to talk about. However, we look in this conference, we look only at the energy sector because this is the Energy Finance Conference. A little bit about the history of the conference my colleagues will share later. But what we're hoping to achieve in this conference in the next 2 days is to broadly look at what has been the policy around reducing carbon emission or decarbonizing of the energy sector. What have been experiences from different perspectives. How does the industry see it? What challenges does the industry face? How are they, dealing with this? How does the government deal with this? How do civil society organizations who work with affected people, what is our, experience? How do academicians research reflect, all the narratives that are going around? We would also look specifically at the grid because within the energy, the power sector is one of the most critical ones, necessary for humankind, but also for in terms of emissions. So we'll have an entire session looking at that. In the context of decarbonizing, we see few things happening. We see technological innovation leading the way. We see investments and new economic models also emerging as we, try to invent and reinvent how we deal with this situation. So we will take a look at that. With the attempt to decarbonize, there are alternative systems, alternative materials that are also being put in place, which mean that different kinds of materials are being used. So we have different kinds of minerals that we've been hearing about lithium, for example, for the past few days, and how we are going to be increasing lithium mining in our country. So we will have new materials. What does that look like? What caveats do we need to watch out for while exploring these new minerals so that we can transition to a more sustainable living? Finally, anything that we do will need, support financially. Nothing can happen just, with fresh air. And so looking at what are the financial mechanisms, what are the pitfalls, what are their advantages, how can we better them, again, coming from multiple perspectives. And I think that's what's special about this conference for us, is that it brings people from very different walks of life with the possibility of dialogues outside of our each of our regular comfort zones. So we really hope that we will be able to have conversations. We might even have some oppositional ideas and views, but our objective is dialogue can lead to new pathways, and that's really where we hope to head at the end of these 2 days. Finally, we do not live in silos. We are in a globalized world, and what happens in international instruments affects us and vice versa. So we will take a look at that. And finally, while energy is definitely a sector in focus for us, we also recognize that there are other sectors which are extremely emitting, and they have a link with the energy sector. For example, cement, steel. Both of these use energy in their operations, and how does it look like in these kind of sectors, and including agriculture, which is an extremely important occupation for us in our country. So that's how these 2 days will flow and look. Having introduced the outline of the conference to you, I'd like to invite Maju, my colleague at CFA, who will offer the welcome address and also actually kickstart this conference. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maju Verghese. I work as the Operations Director at the Centre for Financial Accountability, New Delhi. I'm honored to stand before you today and extend a warm welcome to the 5th edition of the Energy Finance Conference, which is a collaborative effort by the Centre for Financial Accountability, the Indo-German Centre for Sustainability at IIT-Madras and Climate Trends. We have gathered here for a significant dialogue aimed at exploring and navigating the pathways towards decarbonizing the energy sector. I extend A heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you. The Energy Finance Conference is an annual event that brings together the brilliance of experts and researchers, the passion of the climate justice activists and civil society organizations, and the innovation of industry leaders. The inaugural conference took place on this very campus in 2019, and since then it has been an annual event striving to build synergy among these diverse perspectives in pursuit of a common goal. This conference owes its existence to the eminent leadership of Dr. Sudhir Chellarajan and Dr. Krishna Vasudevan from IIT-Madras, who recognized the potential in fostering dialogue between academics, climate justice activists, civil society, and industry. 3 organizations have come together to steer the Energy Finance Conference. The first one being the Indo-German Centre for Sustainability at IIT-Madras, which is a joint Indo-German Centre developing interdisciplinary research, teaching, training, and exchange in the area of sustainable development. It focuses on environmental protection regarding water resources, energy, land use, rural development, and waste management, and aims to develop the capacity and capability to promote sustainable development. The second organization is Climate Trends, which is a research-based consulting and capacity building initiative that aims to bring greater focus on issues of environment, climate change, and sustainable development. The third organization is the Center for Sustainable Financial Accountability, who aims to transform finance into a force for positive change, promoting social justice, environmental sustainability, and economic inclusivity. The Center for Financial Accountability, CFA, is committed to researching and advocating for a shift from financing fossil fuels to renewables through a just transition that keep people at its core. As we convene today, the challenges and urgency for immediate action have intensified, with 2023 confirmed as the hottest year on record. We have exceeded 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries, and communities, particularly vulnerable nations and young people, are calling out for urgent action. The transformation of energy systems into safe, affordable, reliable, and efficient ones based on renewable resources and transitioning to a low carbon and sustainable economy stands as an immediate challenge before us. Throughout this conference, we will deliberate on key issues, analyzing policies for decarbonizing the energy sector in the country, and exploring how to finance these initiatives for a just transition. Our lineup of speakers include experts in the field, alongside climate justice researchers and activists who stand at the intersection of knowledge and action. Together, we will explore pathways through collaborative efforts that can pave the way for a cleaner and more sustainable energy landscape. We hope this conference will initiate open discussion and debate with a shared commitment towards a decarbonized future. Thank you for accepting our invitation and joining in this edition of the Energy Finance Conference. A warm welcome to each one of you. Now I would like to introduce Professor Indumati Nambi, who will be moderating the inaugural session. Professor Nambi is a professor in Civil Engineering Department. Her research has primarily been in water quality sector, particularly groundwater, industrial wastewater treatment, and restoration of water bodies. She also serves in several expert committees at national and state level, including Jal Jeevan Mission, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, remediation of contaminated sites with NCEF. She has established and served as PI and governing board of Centre for Urbanization, Buildings and Environment, CUBE, sponsored by the Government of Tamil Nadu, and Centre for Technology Development, Demonstration and Dissemination, sponsored by Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board. Professor Nambi has been promoting the conversion of research ideas from lab to practice through problem-directed research projects and entrepreneurship. Over to you, Professor, for taking this session ahead.
I'm really honored to be here to kickstart this 2 days event on decarbonizing the energy sector by the Energy Finance Conference. This is the 5th Energy Finance Conference of India. So as introduced, I work broadly in the environmental engineering area, and particularly in the oil spill. I see a lot of posters on oils. So we look at contaminated oil spill sites, plastics, how do we restore and bring back oil from plastics, the circular economy model. So I'm very happy because energy is the key for everything, and we can't live without energy, but still we have to see what better ways in which we can manage our energy requirement. And finance being a very key thing in all of this, whether we want to extract oil or we are going to get back oil from circular economy models or any other renewable energy products, financing becomes very key. So I'm really looking forward to the deliberations which are going to come out of this two-day event. And I think Dr. Krishna Vasudevan, the organizer of this event, is going to tell us more about the conference. I would call upon Dr. Krishna Vasudevan. He's a professor in electrical engineering at IIT-Madras and also heading the energy part of the IGCS, Indo-German Centre for Sustainability.
Thank you, and I extend a very warm welcome to one and all for the event, and also especially to IIT Madras. The Institute has been focusing a large amount of effort in the domain of energy, and though we hadn't been looking at it in that specific way, we did find out in the recent few months that the largest research output from IIT Madras is in the domain of energy. And I myself am from the energy sector, as Dr. Indumati mentioned, and I work in the area of renewable energy on the electrical engineering aspect of it. And in that sense, I am also, deeply concerned about the impact of energy generation on the global warming aspects and how we can make it more sustainable. The IGCS is also an organization that focuses on sustainability, and the IGCS focuses on interdisciplinary aspect between sustainable use of land, water, waste, and energy. And energy, of course, is an entity that moves everything else. And we have been, extremely happy to link up with CFA to organize these events. And for us in IITM, this event gives us a unique look into the aspects which we as engineers don't really look at it every now and then. We are sort of more focused on technology and how we could have more efficient aspects of technology, less emissions which are going to emit. But then we do need to look at the social aspects and the financial aspects as well. We do have also economics department at IIT Madras, which looks at the impact of economics on energy and impact of energy on economics as well. So we do have a very good ecosystem, and we're very happy to be interacting with CFA and the other organizers for this event as well.
I would like to call upon Dr. Joe Ali. He is heading the Center for Financial Accountability. And Joe has nearly 3 decades of experience at grassroots work, national and international campaign and advocacy work. He worked at the Narmada Bachao Andolan and National Alliance of People's Movement, Amnesty International and Bank Information Center in various senior roles. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Professor. It's really a pleasure to be back at IIT again. As colleagues said, this is the 5th edition of the conference. Annually, we have been kind of organizing. As an emerging force in global energy economy, it becomes imperative for a country like India to support its expanding economy by identifying energy as a cardinal determinant to achieving its developmental goals. The challenge before the energy policymakers in the country today is to evolve a secure, sustainable, innovative energy sector that would also resonate well with countries' commitment towards climate pledges that resolves to follow a cleaner path towards economic development. It concerns solutions, technologies, alternative pathways in the sector are discussed in particular groups, or to say in silos, and not on common platforms. Dialogue and discussions on investments in the sector and economy of energy is even rare. Energy Finance Conference was conceived as one such platform for common conversations. As I said, started in 2019, this is the 5th edition of it. The previous in the previous conferences, in various panels, we discussed about political economy of energy transition, green financing, financing models in energy sector, hydrogen storage, second and third generation biofuels, and other topics. We had speakers from various quarters, including academics, activists, representatives from the industry, policymakers, and from the world of finance, including World Bank and rating agencies like Ernst & Young. In these discussions, we did not agree with each other on everything that was said. My colleague already said about it. But we certainly heard each other, understood their positions better, and that helped mold our positions and convictions even better. In this journey, as Maju also mentioned, Dr. Chelarajan, Dr. Vasudevan, and friends from Prayas Energy Group helped shape these discussions, bringing in diverse yet relevant voices around and facilitate this space for a non-judgmental space for dialogue. With an eminent set of speakers this year, I'm sure that we will continue the spirit of previous years. We look forward for a great energy in this conference. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we are now going forward with the most awaited keynote address by Vandana Shiva. Dr. Vandana Shiva, as we all know, she doesn't need any introduction. She is a physicist by training from University of Western Ontario in Canada, but she's more known for her environmental activities and research. She has also done interdisciplinary research in science, technology, and environmental policy from IISc and Indian Institute of Management. She graduated from IIM in 1982, and she founded an independent institute called Research Foundation for Science, Technology and Ecology in Dehradun, which is dedicated to high quality and independent research to address the most significant ecological and social issues of our times. In close partnership with local communities and social movements, in 1991, she founded Navdanya, a national movement to protect diversity and integrity of living resources, especially native seeds, the promotion of organic farming and fair trade. In 2004, she started the Bija Vidyapeeth, an international college for sustainable living in Doon Valley, in collaboration with Schumacher College, UK. And Dr. Shiva, we all know that she is a recipient of several awards, national and international, and she is known for combining her sharp intellectual inquiry with courageous activism.
Well, greetings to everyone who has gathered for this important meeting. The issue of energy and the issue of climate havoc are individually very, very complex. Sadly, both have been approached in a very reductionist way. And that's why real solutions have not been that easy to approach. It's not that they are not there. That's the kind of solutions I practice and build. Let me just, for those who don't know me or don't know my background, I'm basically a physicist, did a PhD in the foundations of quantum theory, and have, for the last 40 years, been pushed into issues of agriculture, particularly ecological regenerative agriculture, because of what I have witnessed take place initially with the violence in Punjab, with the disaster of Nepal, and increasingly with the water crisis linked to it, the climate crisis linked to it. And those are the aspects I want to address for you. Energy and food are interrelated. Energy is food and food is energy. But we have got used to thinking in fragmented silos with no interconnection. So when we think of energy, we only think of consumptive energy. We don't think of regenerative energy. We don't think of ways in which food becomes energy, and food needs energy, but different kinds of energy. The interconnectedness in all living systems and ecological systems are both the flow of energy and the flow of food, constantly interchanging. Just think of it. It's not a very good measure, but the way food is described is with calories. And if you want to know the interconnection between energy and food, just dwell on that a little bit. Another very important part is that we've stopped seeing the distinguishing of processes that are ecologically very different, and we equate them. We equate substances that are very different and treat them as equal. And this false equivalence has caused much of the confusion in the climate debate. To understand our place on Earth right now, we need to understand the evolution of the Earth so that we can play the appropriate role in the future of humanity and the Earth. This Earth was a very, very hot and very dead planet. Over 4 billion years, through the ecological systems, largely the process of photosynthesis, the Earth evolved first life, and then life evolved to cool the planet. The temperatures of the Earth used to be 290 degrees centigrade, 290 degrees centigrade. And the Earth reduced that temperature to 13 degrees centigrade. The concentration of carbon dioxide on the Earth was 98%. It was reduced to 0.03%. 98% to 0.03. It's now at 0.04. But think of the 98%. And how did the Earth do this over the past 4.5 billion years? The Earth did it through microbes and plants, which the Earth evolved to perform the function of photosynthesis, which takes out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere with the help of the sunlight and transforms it into carbohydrates, the molecule of life, the basis of our food system, and fiber and everything else we need. So in a way, both the process of cooling and providing for human needs and needs of other beings are the same process. But the distinguishing factor is carbohydrates that are living carbon are very different from hydrocarbons, which are dead carbon. And that's the equation, false equation, that has been made. Over 600 million years, the Earth converted living matter, dead living matter, into gas and coal and petroleum. And just over 200 years of the fossil fuel age, first the age of coal in the hands of the British, and then the age of oil, driven by the Rockefellers, the Standard Oil, the United States government. We're basically we're burning up 20 million years of nature's work annually. Now, there's no way this can fit into an ecological system. That's where the pollution comes. That's where the buildup of greenhouse gases comes. Now, in terms of greenhouse gases, the three primary ones are carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. Now, carbon dioxide, that's 220 million years of burning, is very different from the CO2 that is part of the biogenic cycle of plants absorbing the carbon dioxide, animals exhaling the carbon dioxide. And within these biogenic systems, the balance stays. It's going out of the biogenic system that creates the buildup of greenhouse gases. What applies to carbon dioxide applies to nitrous oxide. Now, nitrogen is a basic element of the living system. And when plants and microbes recycle nitrogen, it stays fine. It builds up in the soil and it stays stable in the atmosphere. But when we shift to synthetic fertilizers, we build up nitrous oxide. Now, nitrous oxide is 300 times more damaging to the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. And yet it's not part of the climate discussion. Part of it is because those who are bringing forth solutions own the fertilizer industry, own the fossil industry, and they want more of it. So while they push false solutions on people, they want more use of fertilizer. Read Bill Gates' book, How to Address Climate Catastrophe, standing in front of a fertilizer plant and saying, I love fertilizer. We must use more fertilizers. Well, they've already given us massive greenhouse gas pollution, but they are actually disguised fossil fuels. And the International Agency for Energy has said that the single biggest area where fossil fuels is continuing to be increased, its use is increasing, is in the fertilizer sector. And they're not just killing the atmosphere, it's killing the oceans with dead zones, it's killing the soils. And soil organisms of how the systems work. At this point, the energy used for fertilizer manufacture is equivalent to 191 billion liters of diesel. And and then it's expected to go up to 277 billion. Most people are very concerned about flying. But commercial flights have less emissions than the emissions from nitrogen, the full life cycle emissions from nitrogen fertilizers. So we need to distinguish the living carbon and the dead carbon. Not only are the synthetic fertilizers, which are disguised fossil fuels, we should see them as fossil fuels, disrupting the system, they are preventing us from making the transition. I want to come back to the issue of how different forms of energy and different forms of production systems use different kinds of energy. So it's only 200 years ago we started to use fossil energy. It's not that we didn't have energy before. It's not that we didn't have production before. But we had systems that run on their own energy. I put a seed into the soil. The seed becomes a mature plant, a tree, a crop, with its own internal energy. Whereas when I run a machine, I must have external inputs. And these two systems in science are now being called exosomatic, outside the living system, and endosomatic, from within the living system. They're also being called self-organized and autopoietic and externally put together like a machine. So, Emery Lovins, who did some really brilliant work on energy, he showed that, for example, a Nigerian uses 250 times less external energy, fossil energy, than an American in 1975. The difference, of course, will be much, much more now. And what Lovins did was he said, now, this energy pressure on the planet is still a pressure on the planet. It's part of the footprint. It's just that in terms of the workforce, the population of the Earth at that time, he said, is 4 billion. It's not 4 billion, but about 200 billion, except that the energy slaves, as he called them, don't use the normal food. They use fossil energy. If we were to do that calculation today, we are 7.7 billion people, but add the hidden energy use of energy slaves in industrial agriculture, we are 3.35 trillion. That's population pressure. And this is what's driving the climate havoc and the pollution and the increased entropy. I've just finished writing a book which should come out anytime next year, later this year or next year. It's on climate change and the future of food. Because food has become the big turf on the climate wars. You might have noticed it at COP, you might have noticed it right now in what's going on in Davos. The very people who brought fossil fuel agriculture systems, which is industrial agriculture, green revolution, give it any name, but it's driven by fossil fuels and fossil fuel based chemicals like nitrogen fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. They are now wanting to get farmers out of farms because they are now ready with the next industrial revolution. Digital agriculture, they call it. Their slogan is farming without farmers, food without farms. Now, it's sadly being offered as a climate solution, but a system that uses more energy, external energy, more fossil energy, is not going to be a climate solution. It'll make everything worse. It'll just get rid of the farmers. That is why you will notice right now, everywhere across Europe, farmers are on the streets with their tractors. It's spreading from Germany to Romania to France. Country after country is coming out because the climate conditionalities being put, the pseudo climate conditionalities, are basically designed to wipe out the farmers because they're ready with fake food made in labs with more energy intensity and digital agriculture with no farmers, more drones, spraying with aeroplanes. And India's rushing along with this, even though there's absolutely no need. We're trying to substitute farmers with drones. But a farmer can give care to the land. Farming for me is care for the land. A drone cannot. The drone can only spray a pesticide. So it is furthering the industrial model, which is already responsible for 50% of all the greenhouse gases. I wrote a book in the lead up to Copenhagen called Soil, Not Oil, comparing the oil civilization and eating oil and the soil civilization, knowing you're part of the soil, you're part of the earth. You have to behave like part of the earth and earth's being, not as a conqueror and master in a very colonial spirit. I want to share with you some of the most important learning, especially institutes of technology should be developing further. Let me share with you two quotes. One from Schrödinger, who shaped quantum theory. Schrödinger also wrote a book, What is Life? And as a physicist, he realized living systems are not like machines. And he realized that in this book, What is Life, he says, living systems have negative entropy. Just think of it. Every machine generates entropy. It takes useful energy and turns it into unusable energy. What does a plant do with its endosomatic energy? It takes living energy and increases its usability by creating more and more usable energy. By avoiding the rapid decay into the inert state of equilibrium that an organism appears so enigmatic. When an organism feeds on, what the organism feeds on is negative entropy. That changes the whole issue of energy. Because here are systems that generate, organize energy, create energy, living systems do. And mechanical systems use energy to create waste, pollution, heating up. And May Wan Ho, who we used to discuss with, she's no more, dear friend, May Wan wrote a book called Rainbow and the Worm. And she used to talk to me because I'd done my PhD in quantum theory. She said, I want to understand deeper the quantum phenomena in living systems. And she did this book, The Quantum Theory of Organisms. And this is what she writes. In life, quality of life matters. Living matters cannot eat carbon or diamond pulp. They need life. Life uses the highest grade of energy and organizes it. It does not heat up the body of the organism. Just think. Your computers heat up, everything heats up, your vehicles heat up. A plant does not heat up. And that is where we have to turn to look at the future of climate, the future of carbon, the future of humanity. Living systems can do this by the meticulous space-time organization in which energy is stored in a range of time scales and spatial extents. And she goes on to use the non-locality principle of quantum theory to say the reason there's constantly, instantaneously, every element of a complex system gets organized is because of this non-local phenomena of being particular as well as distributed at the same time. So if you can come across this book, those who are interested, read it. And I have so many books, Soil Not Oil, Who Really Feeds the World. I could go on with the list of books, but let me come back to the topic you are addressing. So if it is the case that the Earth was 290 degrees and the Earth made herself 13 degrees, every system that uses more external energy will generate more entropy, generate more heat, generate more pollution, and disturb the climate more. What path should we be choosing? Now, this false claim that's being made of farming without farmers, we'll make food in labs, is ecologically an extremely fraudulent statement. It's not just fraudulent statement, it's actually anti-scientific. New research is showing that this lab food that's being pushed very fast, particularly from Silicon Valley, is very, very feed intensive and very energy intensive. Now, even the cells and the microbes that are used to make fake food in the lab without using the free energy of the sun and photosynthesis, it needs food because everything is food. Everything is something else is food. Even the microbes need food. And you will need to generate 5 times more feedstock for the microbes and the cells in the lab than the cows eat. And cows are being killed for this very false argument. 1 million in Ireland, 1/3 of the animal herds in Netherlands. This is what the farmers are really reacting to right now. So 5 times more feedstock, therefore 5 times more land, just like factory farming of animals was done in the name of using less land, but that was for the prison of the animals. In terms of feedstock, it was much, much bigger. 70% of the corn of India is being used for animal feed right now. 90% of the grain of the world is being used for animal feed and biofuel around the world. But in terms of emissions will be 25 times more, because if emissions come from an energy-intensive external energy intensive process that generates heat and pollution, then making it more energy intensive, which it must be, will increase the emissions. So we are being put on a totally anti-ecological, anti-science, anti-earth, anti-people track, so a handful of people can harvest more profits from the food system, just like they did with the fertilizers first and with the GMO BT cotton seeds, and now food is getting patented. That Impossible Burger has 14 patents associated with it. That's why those of you who focus on energy will have to stretch your thinking into the energy and food nexus, because that's where the battle right now is. Now, on the other hand, leading negotiators say, oh, there's no hope, we can't ever reach the 1.5 degrees centigrade, which is not true. So much research has now got done, and Navdanya has done field work, but others have done work on how we can keep within the 1.5 degree limit if we work according to the Earth's principles. The living soil and living plants and biodiversity can keep systems within the 1.5 degrees. We can pull out 32 gigatons, and that is the gap that is preventing us from staying within the 1.5 degrees. Some calculations 34, some calculations 32. But there is no other way to reach this than by increasing photosynthesis, which is the only living system that can address this problem. And to increase photosynthesis, you need to increase biodiversity. And biodiversity and the climate issue are intimately connected, because the biosphere and the atmosphere are intimately connected. It's the biosphere that brought the temperature down of the planet. It's intensifying the endosomatic processes of the biosphere that is going to both give us the alternative to a fossil system, and it's the biosphere that will address climate change while providing for human needs. People are hungry. At this point, 1 billion people are hungry, and more are becoming hungry, because the systems that feed the world are being dismantled and broken. So Joe had mentioned, you must mention decarbonization. And I differentiate between living carbon, the system of recycling of carbon and turning its carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, versus the system of extracting the fossil systems and then basing everything on hydrocarbons. We are eating oil, we are drinking oil. Our water bottles, our plastic water bottles, are embodied oil. So just put your analysis through to the system and see that we are shifting oil. Now, I'm a strong believer of ecological systems. We definitely, if humanity over its 250,000 years has lived without oil and been addicted to oil for 1 century, surely we can turn to ways of doing things without oil. Even more importantly, if the earth has created these amazing systems of photosynthesis, of cooling the planet, of taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and carbon sequestration, surely we can work with that system of knowledge and science. And we'll have more food, we'll have better food, we'll have more livelihoods, we'll have more employment, we'll have a more regenerated earth, and we'll address the climate problem. So for me, we need to decarbonize fossil fuels, but we need to recarbonize the planet with living carbon. And we have to differentiate between dead carbon and living carbon. Thank you.